Welcome to the MotUS Edge, where we celebrate business, primarily youth sports facility management, leadership, and motivation. Co-hosted by Stacy Rowe, Cole Stott, Kevin Brubaker, and Casey Jones. We are here to fill your cup with knowledge, laughter, affirmations, and comfort knowing that you're not alone. You can and will succeed with the MotUS Edge.
Hello and welcome to the MotUS Edge. Today is the Stacy and Casey show. We are super excited to chat with y'all today about hiring parents, setting boundaries, and all of the things that come along with that.
Sounds like a morning radio show, like Stacy and Casey on 99.8.
I agree. Maybe we shouldn't have the other two on anymore.
I was thinking the same thing. This will probably be a lot better without those two. So.
I agree. Listeners, tell us what you think.
Yeah, we might have to give up this cheerleading gig and start our own morning radio show.
I like it.
Anyway, I'm going to start the day off with our dad joke because we got to have a dad joke. So, Stacy, question for you. Where do baby cats learn to swim?
I don't know where.
The kiddie pool.
Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness gracious. All right. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started with our topic. So parents, hiring parents. It's definitely an interesting topic. Casey and I are both parents, so we definitely have a parent perspective, and then we're both gym owners. So, we've definitely hired parents. I've hired coach parents. I've had, manager parents even, and front, admin office parents. How about you, Casey?
Yeah, all the same. Sometimes I hear I see different things on different cheerleading forums and things like, don't do it, don't hire. And I totally disagree with that. I think that the parents in your program, who wants to see your program succeed more than the parents of the athletes that are involved there? They're truly vested. There's different things you got to look out for and make sure you get the right folks, just like any employee. But I'm a big fan of hiring parents within the program.
Yeah, I agree. I think done properly, it can go well, but you do have to have boundaries. You do have to have set clear boundaries and just make sure that everybody kind of understands what is going on. I think it can get a little difficult sometimes if they have an athlete. Obviously, they're a parent, so they have an athlete in the program. And if, things aren't going well with that athlete, it can get a little, there's definitely some stickiness, if you will, that comes along with it. But I agree with you. I do think it's worth it. And all the parents that have ever worked for me, I feel like for the most part have turned out to be, great employees and great parents. I think sometimes too, Casey, it's just as hard for them, to try to be a parent. Like they want to coach, they want to do their thing or they want to participate in their passion, which is coaching and that kind of thing. But then they also have a child and they almost never get to take their coach hat off, and I feel like it's challenging for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. I can relate to that, because both of my daughters have really grown up in the gym. And my oldest daughter, Emily, really tried to, kind of keep, I don't think people even knew that I had a daughter in the gym, for the longest time until she made herself famous on Twitter. In not a great way in about 9th or 10th grade, but that's a whole different podcast, different story for one day, and probably my best dad joke of all. But, it is tough because that's a thing that, I never wanted people to think that there was any favoritism or anything like that. So literally I would separate myself from her so much that most people didn't even know that I had a kid in the program. So it for sure can be challenging to parents we've had within the gym. But, I just think it can also be so rewarding, watching families kind of come up through the gym. It's a huge part of what we do.
I agree. And I think that, setting those boundaries is super important. Like travel, I think is one of the conversations that comes up a lot, when you're traveling to events, like does that parent employee, if they were just a parent, they would be paying their own way and paying their room and doing all of those things. If they were a coach, the gym is covering a lot of those expenses and that kind of thing, and so there's details like that you need to work out. And I think it can be different for every gym, depending on what you're budgeting for or what you're comfortable with. A lot of times we do, like a room stipend, so this is what we would cover of your room. And if you want to, do whatever with your athlete, you can bring your athlete along, and then we'll give you the stipend to cover your some of your expenses. It gets hard if you've got 10 coaches, let's say, that all have athletes. You've got 20 coaches and half of them all have athletes. You're going to pay for 10 rooms for coaches to bring their kids. Like, that gets a little bit hairy for everybody. So I think that's one of the biggest things. I get asked a lot of questions like, what do you do and how do we handle this? And then I think also communication, like, that person, like, they need to be able to, okay, I'm taking off my coach hat. Now I have an athlete problem, that I want to talk to you about. And I'm putting on my mom hat, and we're going to have this conversation. Then I'm going to take that off. I'm going to, put my coach hat back on and be able to kind of go between the two. I'm like you though, Casey. So my daughter didn't do cheerleading, but she did gymnastics, and we have gymnastics as well. And the coaches obviously knew that she was my daughter, but I tried to stay away from the parents. I would drop her off. I would pick her up. Yeah. Like, a lot of people probably thought, gosh, this poor kid, like, her mother doesn't even care about her. She's never around, and it broke my heart, but I didn't want to be all up in the mix, and I didn't want to sit with the parents and have them talk to me constantly about every single thing that was going on. So I just I was like super, super hands off. But that's what I think can be hard sometimes for coach parents too. It's like they want to be a parent, but you kind of don't get to be sometimes, I feel like, if you're coaching.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. And we have some of our parents in the gym that coach. And unfortunately, there are those challenges, but there's also the times where they don't even get to watch their own kid because the team that they're coaching is performing at the same time that their own athlete is performing. So,
and I think those things are important too, to discuss on the front end. Like, these are all things that you may not think of as an owner that can happen because maybe you've never had a parent coach before or, parent admin before. But I think those are all things that you should discuss with them, that, like, hey, if your child is competing at the same time as your team is the priority. Like, you have to be okay with that. If, your child is
those 30 sets of parents, they don't care. They want to know that their coach is there. So
yeah, no, they do not. They do not care. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right.
Very important to, I think that's the key of going over everything first. And I also get a lot of questions from other programs.
Uh-oh. We got Casey's dog barking in the background.
Barking, so.
It's all right.
But I get a lot of questions from other organizations. How do you do? Do you charge them? Do you, all these different questions? And there's no right or wrong answer because we are blessed to have a large program. So we're able to do a lot for our parents that work in the gym. But we couldn't always do that when we were smaller and we were up and coming, and we had, when I first got my start, we had less than 100 kids. So I didn't have the ability to comp really even one or two and help them out. But it's all about, having those conversations up front and setting the expectations. I know for us, one thing that we are very big on is the financial piece, and not the financial piece of what they're paying, but just making sure that they never share the financial information of anyone else in the gym. Because we will often have some gym parents that work up front, and they're able to, see an iClass Pro and see people's statements and things like that. So that's probably one of the biggest things that we go over, is that they can absolutely never have any conversation outside of the office about any of that, just to make sure that everybody feels good about it. So, and not put them in a bad situation.
That's an excellent point. And we do the same thing. And that is kind of like, we sort of have a zero tolerance for that too. It's like, if you're found out to be discussing this information, like, then unfortunately you can't have that responsibility. And that goes for anybody that's working in that role, really. But if they're a parent, they're obviously getting questioned or, talking to other parents. And I think that kind of opens up, Casey, a whole nother thing that I know was always important to me that I would talk to. I feel like, parents can be a great advocate for the gym, and you've got to build the right culture and make sure that everybody is buying into that culture. But at the same time, when you are a coach at the gym, and this is any coach, not just a parent or an admin, a staff member of the facility at all, you have to be careful with your relationships and everybody in the gym. Now, I don't mean that you shouldn't be friendly and that you shouldn't be friends. I just mean that, we always kind of teach like, they are the parent of the athlete. You're not going over to their house for barbecues. You're not going to the bar and having a drink with them at a competition. You're not doing those things. Like, we got to have a line and have a certain level of professionalism, and we don't cross this line. And that's kind of standard for anybody that works at the gym, and should be anyway. But when you have a parent that's a coach, it does kind of get a little bit difficult, because they are a parent, and as a parent, they would go hang out with their other parent friends, and they would do things with their kids' friends' parents. And, and so again, like we talked about before, just kind of being upfront with those things on the front end. What is your expectation here? And if your expectation is that they, be friends and do all those things, then great. If your expectation is that they kind of keep that boundary and keep that line of professionalism that they don't cross, then you need to tell them that. I know a lot of times we have parent coaches that they're like, oh my God, they'll text us like, so-and-so parent just texted me, because they're upset, and they're texting this coach because they're a parent friend, if that makes sense. And so how do you handle that? And what is the clear, description of how you handle that? So obviously, Casey, you can share.
I think more times than not, it works out to benefit the gym, because the person who's behind the scenes and understands how a team is picked and understands those dynamics, because you're right, they live in these communities. We live in these communities. So their neighbor reaches out when they're disgruntled about their daughter not making the team, or their stunt group got moved, or they got put in the back of the dance. And then, that's sometimes where the coach parent can often give a better explanation and calm them down, because the reality is it doesn't matter whether you're a coach or whether you're a parent, you're going to be dealing with that anyway. So that's the way I look at it. It's really no different. Really doesn't change anything. And I tell our coaches, because, we have all had to basically, make sure that we're doing everything on a professional level, make sure that athlete safety and everything is put at the forefront of every single thing we do. But we also just use common sense. I remember having a conversation with a coach 2 or 3 years ago, and they were
common
concerned.
Sense. What's common sense?
I don't know. It's crazy. They were concerned, like, hey, if I coach at the gym, does that mean that my kid can't have friends over? Like, she can't have people on her team over to my house because I'm a coach, and we've said there's got to be these boundaries. I'm like, absolutely, they can have friends over. Use common sense, just like anything. I'm a parent. I'm never going to go pick up my daughter's friend just by myself. I'm going to have my daughter in the car or my wife in the car or whatever. Just use common sense. But we want people that are part of the community. We want them to share in those things, at least from my perspective, because, if they were a parent on the team, parent only, they're going to do those things. So I don't know that a parent coach, those dynamics change too much.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like we said, it's just setting the boundaries, making sure that the coach has the clear boundaries, whatever those are. And, everybody does the best they can. I think open line of communication is the most important thing. As long as you're communicating about it and, hey, this is what happened. I don't know, the coach, the parent texted me, we had a conversation about it. This is how it occurred, so that the gym is aware, and you're like, okay, cool. That was good. Problem solved. If it escalates, then we might need to take it, somewhere else. And I think too, that letting your parent coaches know, and your parent admin staff know that you support them. You're going to help them work through some of these situations, especially if they're a new parent, new to the situation, not a new parent, but new to the situation.
Right.
You're going to help them kind of, work through some of it, and we're going to learn this together and make sure that we're all moving together in the right direction. And so communication, I think we do a whole podcast on communication, but communication is so important to making sure that everybody is having a successful experience all together. Because at the end of the day, that's really all we want, right?
Right. So I got a question for you. What do you think about obviously we both agree that parents can come in and work in the gym and coach in the gym. How about coaching your own athlete? What do you
I
think on
don't
that?
think that is a good idea. I think that, do I think that some people can coach their own athlete? Yes. I think that some people are capable. In my opinion, I feel the majority are not. Not that they're not capable, everybody's capable, but that it's not a good experience. And so if it's not a good experience for you and your child, boy or girl, then it's probably going to not be a good experience for everybody else on the team. And it's important that everybody on the team is having a good experience. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Let's just avoid that when possible to ensure the best experience for everyone.
I tend to agree with that. I personally never really wanted to coach my own children, and I did a couple times. I coached my oldest daughter on her high school team. I also coached my youngest daughter on her high school team. I feel like I was a little better the second time. I mean, the first time I was, oh my goodness, you nailed it, because our relationship and our dynamic was a negative for the rest of the team because I was harder on her than everybody else. I wasn't fair to her because I never wanted the favoritism thing. So I took that to the opposite. You're not going to get favoritism. You're going to get my wrath. And, but maturity, experience over time, I learned that wasn't the way to go. And the reality is, if it can be avoided, avoid it. That was a thing that every year when tryouts would roll around in our gym, I would basically not be there or not be a part of it, frustrate the heck out of my wife, because she'd be like, what team did Emily make? And I literally would not know. Didn't want to know, didn't want to be any part of any conversations about my own kid. But those are where we have to sometimes set the boundaries with our coaches, because not everybody's like me. A lot of people, they are snooping around. They want to know where their kid lands. They're kind of talking to other.
I think as a coach parent, you have two different types of people, or when you're coaching in general, if you're as a coach, for the most part, you're competitive, right? You want to win. You want to be the winner. You want to do the best that you can. And, I know I personally would spend hours just dissecting every little piece of the routine. Just obsess and watch in slow motion and fast forward and rewind and take notes. And, and I'm doing all of this. And this is just for athletes that I'm coaching. I think that when you add the kid into it, when you add your own child into it, you add an additional level of intensity that comes with an emotional baggage piece. I feel like where now you're just even more emotional and kind of irrational sometimes because it's your child and you want your child to experience, going to worlds or winning worlds or going to, the majors or the stage 8 dance battle or whatever. Pick your event at the time, 100 years ago, NCAA nationals, UCA nationals, whatever the case may be. And you have this burning desire. We all have it, but then you throw a child of your own making into the mix and it just blows it out of control. In my opinion, I've seen it time and time and time again. And that makes it very difficult for the parent and everybody else involved. And then the coach parent looks back on that time after the fact and is like, man, I really messed that up, not just for me and my kid, but for everybody else too.
Yeah. I certainly did that one high school year with my oldest, but it's tough. And those are things we talk about in our gym a lot, because sometimes, oh my goodness, this parent's so overboard and they're so crazy and this and that and the other. And I look at that and I'm like, guys, but behind most every major league baseball player was a crazy baseball dad who built the pitching cage in his basement. And they went out and did 3 hours every afternoon of batting against the net in the backyard. And he was overboard, so much to the point that his son went on to make millions and play in the majors.
Totally. And here, I'm not here to judge because I'm a mom too. And I got 2 kids, and trust me, I am Mama Bear. My husband always jokes around because, usually I'm the rational one, but when it comes to my children, if something happens to my child or what, I am extremely irrational. I remember there was a kid, this is not sports related, but there was a kid in preschool, and my son was 4, and this boy kept biting him at school. And I know that happens like in preschool, especially in preschool. John might've been 3, actually. I don't know, but he was little. And, I think he was 3, and he kept being bit repeatedly, like every day, and I get that, like kids that age, they don't always know how to express themselves. They're angry. Hey, I want that. I'm going to bite you to get that from me. So I get it, but we gotta do better if it's happening constantly. Well, then there was a bite mark on his back where like the kid had pushed him over. Right. He had pushed him over and bit in his mouth, in his back so hard you could see like all like the entire mouth teeth print. And I was like, that's enough. I've had enough. So here I am at dinner with my 3-year-old son. And I'm like, when you go into school tomorrow, if that boy touches you, you are to push him down to the ground. I was like, you push him so hard that he falls down to the ground.
Yourself.
And my husband goes into the school the next day to drop John off, and he goes to the daycare owner, and he's like, so I just want you to know that my wife has instructed our son to do this. And so maybe it would be a good idea to like figure out a way to keep the boys apart, and let's make sure that John doesn't get bit anymore, because I'm afraid my wife's going to come in here. And so anyway, the point of that story
that wouldn't have been good if you'd have been coaching both of them on the tiny team. So.
Correct. And I get it, like I totally get it. And I'm lucky that, honestly, I mean, there's a part of me that wishes that, my kids would have done, cheer or dance, but they didn't. But there's a part of me that's like so glad that they didn't, because I absolutely would have been that crazy person. So there's no judgment coming from me. I know it's real, because I would have done it.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite parent stories ever, and it's weird, we remember it a little bit differently, but early on when we were first getting our start, we bought out this smaller gym, and there were a couple parents that worked in that gym, and I think they had come out of the rec leagues. And my memory says that I was very welcoming and wanted them all to come on board. But this one lady that I'm going to share her story, her memory was like, it was a little different. I'm like, well, we'll see what you can do, kind of thing. I don't remember that. But anyway, she was basically a cheer mom. I don't think she cheered at all. But, she came over with a group of kids and parents that from where we had bought out this gym, and basically ended up quickly becoming literally one of our best coaches. She coached at every age, at every level, and had success all the way through, worked herself all the way to the very top, coaching Peach, one of our world's teams, and has won 2 world championships, all while bringing 2 daughters through our gym that also had great success. And I believe both of them won worlds. And now one of them is basically our general manager. So that is just like, I mean, I have so much respect for her and her family and what they've done. And, literally that was a parent in our gym who went on to do great things and continues to do great things for our organization.
Yeah, so. That's awesome. And it's true. Your parents really can be your greatest advocates and your greatest assets at the gym. They are a part of making everything go smoothly. They're a part of getting the kids to practice, getting them to competition on time, getting them ready a lot of the time, being your biggest supporters and your biggest cheerleaders. So, you just want to make sure that you have a strong culture inside of your facility. The parents, although they are adults, they still require a set of expectations. I feel like what is expected of a parent at your facility. And then for parent coaches, make sure you have that communication and that open line of communication and those clear boundaries set, for the season.
Totally agree. And hopefully those parents know your culture better than anyone that you would hire from the outside. We're big on hiring from within. Coaches, we love when kids come through our program and they've spent 8, 9, 10 plus years part of our program, and then they may go to a local college. We love to hire them to coach because they know what we want. But the parents are the same way. And sure, there are challenges, but the reality is there's challenges with any coach. It doesn't matter whether they're a parent in your gym or not. So, those are things that we deal with. So I'm a big proponent of it. I'm a big fan of hiring on parents to help. Our program would not run without the parents, whether they are in a volunteer position of team mom or whether they're working the front desk to make a couple extra bucks or whether they are coaching world championship teams. Like literally, I feel like Stingray All-Stars would be nothing without the parents. So
I agree. I think parents rock.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in today for our quick Edge episode. We'll be back next week with the rest of the gang. It won't be quite as fun because it's not the Stacy and Casey show.
I know. We might have to boot them and just take this thing to the radio. So.
I agree. Anyway, hope you guys are having a great week. If you like what we're doing, let us know. Be sure to follow us on social media at Join MotUS on Instagram, Facebook, X, and TikTok. And then you can also follow us on wherever you listen to your podcast and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. See you guys next week. Have a great week.
Boom. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Thank you for listening to the MotUS Edge. We hope you had a blast. Join us next week for more on business, leadership, and motivation. Subscribe and follow the show where you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our newsletter at joinmotus.com. The MotUS Edge podcast is produced by ClantonCreative.com.